Wherever Rosie O'Donnell's gone, she's probably eating a leprechaun. She's our hero of the day for leaving America if Trump won and relocating to Ireland, where she's still not funny. So many celebs say they're going to do it but never do, but does she have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Not a day has gone by that I thought it was the wrong decision. I was welcomed with open arms. I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country.
Imagine a celebrity so consumed by political rage, they publicly swear to abandon their homeland if a specific election outcome occurs. Now imagine, against all cynical expectations, that they actually do it. This isn't just a fleeting stunt, it's a grand theatrical exodus. We're talking about Rosie O'Donnell, who with unprecedented fanfare declared she would flee America if Donald Trump again clinched the presidency. And then, defying every pundit, she packed her bags, her future, and her non-binary child, setting sail for Ireland. She proudly proclaimed, "Not a day has gone by that I thought it was the wrong decision. I was welcomed with open arms." For Rosie, Project 2025 was the terrifying blueprint forcing her to seek sanctuary across the Atlantic. But was this an act of profound political courage, a desperate escape, or simply the ultimate, most elaborate act of self-preservation for a public figure whose relevance was rapidly fading? Because what followed her dramatic exit wasn't quiet exile, it was a brutal verbal clash, a searing intellectual reckoning that erupted with shocking force on live television. We're talking about Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly, two sharp-tongued titans who, in a breathtaking spectacle of overcooked opinions meeting undercooked comebacks, didn't just challenge Rosie O'Donnell, they took her to the intellectual woodshed. This wasn't a mere debate. It was a devastating, unsparing roast served on a razor-sharp blade of pure, unadulterated snark, with Rosie O'Donnell tragically cast as the main course. If you crave chaos, relish in pettiness, and find satisfaction in watching someone get verbally vaporized, then congratulations, you've just stumbled upon your new favorite train wreck. Brace yourselves, because this wasn't just entertainment, it was a warning.
Great Gutfeld, join me now for Where Are They Now? Political Style. By the way, they never give you the real reason why they're leaving. Like Ellen DeGeneres says she was going to London because of Trump. No, it's because she was a monster and everybody hates her. That's the same thing with Rosie. You know why she's leaving,
why?
Right? We know why she's leaving. It's literally an ego trip. Once nobody likes you, you just leave.
Because I haven't tortured you enough with clips from Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow, I decided I saw it, and so you had to as well. The following clip from Sex and the City, their latest sequel. I don't know.
Oh, I know what
track.
This is. Oh, no.
I'm sorry, Jashinsky, but it's happening. It's happening.
Oh, no.
For the listening audience, we are about to see Miranda, the character played by Cynthia Nixon, who is so annoying, in bed with a virgin nun played by Rosie O'Donnell. I just threw up a little in my mouth. Go ahead, roll it.
Are amazing. Oh, I have never experienced anything like that.
Ew. Oh my God. I'm so grossed out, Emily. You have to talk. I can't.
Rosie's dramatic, self-proclaimed departure wasn't an isolated event. It was a symbol, part of a curious trend of high-profile figures making grand performative pronouncements about abandoning their nation. Recall Ellen DeGeneres, who once declared her intention to relocate to London if Trump took office. Yet these statements often obscure a simpler truth. For many, these dramatic pronouncements are less about political conviction and more about managing a tarnished public image, attempting to escape the very real consequences of a public weary of their antics. No, Ellen's true reason for wanting to leave wasn't Trump, it was whispers that she had transformed for many into a demanding, even monstrous figure, leading to public backlash. The same could be said for Rosie, the real reason behind her grand exit. It was, quite literally, an ego trip. When the spotlight dims, when public affection wanes, sometimes the only option left for a celebrity is a theatrical, dramatic exit, hoping to reignite interest. Rosie O'Donnell, a name that once boomed with confusing force, operated like a confused foghorn, loud but perpetually off-key. Her career trajectory resembled a roller coaster designed by clowns, full of sudden drops, jarring twists, and that moment where you realize someone forgot to fasten their seatbelt. If self-importance were the only Olympic sport, Rosie would possess more gold medals than Michael Phelps. Her perceived self-importance, a palpable, almost suffocating aura, often overshadowed any actual comedic timing. This conviction of her own significance would inevitably set the stage for the raw revelation of why Gutfeld and Kelly's brutal takedown became such a captivating spectacle of verbal vaporization.
Apparently America couldn't be happier, but like I said, she's our hero of the day for doing what so many other celebs don't have the guts to do. Wow, first Ellen, now Rosie. Makes you wonder what lesbian will leave next.
Else betrays them. Not disclosing when you're in bed with somebody that you have herpes. It's important to disclose before you have interludes that you have the herpes virus. I'm sorry, Exhibit A. Here is Rosie O'Donnell bitching and moaning about her favorite person, Donald Trump. I think this is before she moved. I can't keep track of where she's living in the world to avoid him. Watch. She came out later and told the world she has Donald Trump inflicted herpes from stress. And I wonder, Eliana, whether really there was a legal obligation there for her to disclose that to the character of Miranda.
I have to say, she seems to be in a lot worse condition than Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace in terms of fighting fascism or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't even have a response to that.
No, you
I don't think
can't. It's
anybody
stomach
wants to
turning.
see that.
It's too
like
upsetting.
Anybody wanted
Donald
to see
Trump
that.
would never inflict herpes on Rosie O'Donnell. I think he's made that very clear.
There was an era when Rosie O'Donnell reigned supreme as a queen of daytime television. Her style was a perplexing blend, part Martha Stewart, part I will yell at you until you cry, sprinkled with a dash of did she really just say that on live television? Viewers were never quite sure if they were watching a friendly talk show or a full contact verbal wrestling match. She wasn't merely hosting a program, she was actively throwing verbal punches with the relentless energy of a caffeinated prizefighter who had devoured one too many self-help books. America, surprisingly for a time, couldn't have been happier, but like many sequels nobody asked for, Rosie eventually took her talents elsewhere. And if by talents you mean the unparalleled ability to transform any platform into a sprawling, chaotic arena for endless, unyielding outrage, then yes, her talents flourished. Whether the topic was politics, pop culture, or anything under the sun, Rosie invariably harbored an opinion, and she was never shy about unleashing it, often with the delicate subtlety of a bull released into a china shop. Her unfiltered declarations, her utterly self-assured pronouncements, would soon become the potent fuel for new, even more disturbing controversies, pushing her further into the realm of the truly bizarre and the relentlessly combative. This aggressive public persona, once lauded, would soon find itself under the unforgiving scrutiny of those who understood precisely how to dismantle it.
Julie, she seems miserable, and it doesn't really matter where she goes. She's trying to get away from whatever is inside her, because I looked at her and I go like, wow, she has changed.
I mean, she's changed, but she's also the same. But I love that she deported herself because she's so upset about the illegals being deported. So she deported herself, which is good for her. But I don't know if she really did her homework because Ireland has a ton of illegals.
Yeah.
In fact, Ireland and the United States are both actually right up there. England's not doing much better. So Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell, I guess, are where they should be. But I love that they actually...
The chaos Rosie cultivated found new, increasingly unsettling outlets. Consider Exhibit A, a clip from X and the City, their latest sequel. In a scene that immediately sparked visceral reactions, Miranda, played by Cynthia Nixon, was depicted in bed with a virgin nun, a role shockingly undertaken by none other than Rosie O'Donnell. The sheer audacity left countless viewers gagging, but this unsettling scene was far from her peak spectacles. Rosie later astonishingly declared to the world she was suffering from Donald Trump-inflicted herpes from stress. This was a claim so profoundly peculiar, so medically dubious, that it immediately begged fundamental questions, not least concerning disclosure to Miranda. Her political commentary, too, blossomed into a rich, disturbing vein. She often attempted to channel political activism, yet consistently ended up resembling a confused tourist, utterly lost in a city she barely understood, holding a map upside down. It was akin to watching someone attempt to play chess while knowing only how the pawns move, then furiously yelling at the other players for being too aggressive. The level of misplaced certainty was truly staggering. Every tweet, every loud rant presented as a Nobel-worthy thesis rather than simple noise pollution. And let us not even begin on her relentless attempts at being a social media influencer for wokeness. If the metric for moral superiority were simply being loud and perpetually angry, Rosie would undoubtedly be crowned supreme overlord, but spoiler alert, it is not. Her virtue signaling often came off less as inspiring activism and more as that one insufferable person at the party who ruins everyone's good time by lecturing about carbon footprints while simultaneously ordering a double cheeseburger. The delicious, glaring hypocrisy was not just palpable, it was a screaming presence. Her infamous Twitter tantrums, where she fiercely battled perceived foes, often only succeeded in making her appear like a toddler who had just tragically dropped their ice cream cone. Her social media presence evolved from engaging discourse into an angry cat lady screaming furiously into the vast, indifferent void, and the void, for its part, mostly just sighed and quietly moved on.
Oh my God. I'm so grossed out, Emily. You have to talk. I can't.
You're grossed out, but you're not sorry. You're just forced us.
Why should I be the only one who suffers? You all have to suffer. We're in it together.
I guess I saw it trending and I was like, oh, I can't click on this. I can't. And you know what? Actually, though, I think by watching it, it's just such an example of how bad the writing is on that show. Like the writing on some of these shows, it's like they put it into like progressive chat GPT and come up with just like the worst dialogue. It's so bad.
Then, like a perfectly timed, devastating counterpunch, entered Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly. These were two sharp-tongued personalities who, between their own distinct brands of charm and a shared penchant for sarcastic repartee, had perfected the art of dismantling oversized egos. Watching them unleash their unsparing critique on Rosie was akin to witnessing a finely tuned machine systematically take apart a rusted, oversized appliance. It felt not just inevitable, but deeply satisfying and remarkably cathartic. Rosie had once, with bewildering conviction, claimed she was suffering from Donald Trump-inflicted herpes from stress, a statement so utterly outlandish it begged for a definitive public response. Gutfeld and Kelly didn't just provide one, they delivered a counterpunch that resonated with undeniable clarity. They articulated with biting precision the sheer impossibility of Donald Trump inflicting herpes on Rosie O'Donnell, highlighting the profound absurdity of her public declarations. They saw her battling something far more profound, a pathological disconnect from reality itself. Rosie's political commentary was meticulously dissected and unequivocally exposed for what it was. Not thoughtful analysis, but a misguided performance. Gutfeld and Kelly's so-called roast wasn't merely entertainment, it felt like a crucial public service announcement. It was a stark demonstration of the predictable consequences when someone takes themselves far too seriously, when they cavalierly throw logic completely out the window, and when they allow their ego to run wildly, like a hyperactive child let loose in a candy store. They meticulously broke down Rosie's erratic antics with a devastating combination of cutting wit, razor-sharp sarcasm, and an almost surgical precision that left absolutely no opening for rebuttal. Because, let's be honest, Rosie's inevitable. Response would likely have devolved into another predictable episode of incoherent rambling or a tired rant about how the media was conspiring against her. Their jabs weren't just personal, they cut directly through the elaborate pretense Rosie attempted to maintain, that of being some kind of cultural prophet. Underneath the layers of loud shirts and even louder opinions, what they mercilessly revealed was simply a frustrated woman clinging desperately to relevance. Watching Greg and Megyn systematically dismantle her was like observing a sandcastle wash away under the relentless tide of pure, unadulterated truth. And for countless viewers, it was oddly, profoundly satisfying to witness.
On Rosie O'Donnell. I think he's made that very clear.
Since Eliana refuses to play, Emily, I've got another soundbite for you.
I didn't even know Sex and the City was back on the air. I saw it when
it's happening. You have to react live to the herpes. I'm sorry.
And I was like, oh, you know what? The culture stuff, that's Emily's bailiwick anyway.
Here we go. Yeah. Here we go. Here's another beauty. This is Rosie in another scene singing to Miranda. Enjoy.
Because I knew you
Because I knew it, I have been changed for good. It's from Wicked.
I think Eric.
Perhaps the most exquisitely delicious irony embedded within Rosie's grand gesture of abandoning the United States was her stated reason, her profound upset about illegals being deported. This was a woman who, in her own words, had so dramatically deported herself. A noble act, one might think, for actually uniquely following through on a celebrity threat that so many others articulate but never fulfill. But her grand pronouncement revealed a stunning lack of basic homework. Rosie, in her self-imposed exile to Ireland, seemed blissfully unaware that her chosen sanctuary, much like the United States itself, grapples with its own complex, often overwhelming challenges regarding undocumented immigrants. In fact, Ireland and the US are both, ironically, very much up there in terms of these very same problems. England, too, isn't faring much better. So, in a twisted way, Rosie O'Donnell and perhaps Ellen DeGeneres ended up precisely where they ironically should be, in places that mirror the very issues they claim to be fleeing, proving that one cannot simply run away from an ideology by crossing an ocean. Beyond the political ironies, Rosie possesses an almost pathological habit of dragging virtually everyone she encounters into her personal drama. Whether it's former friends, fellow celebrities, or the unsuspecting general public, Rosie exhibits an uncanny knack for transforming minor disputes into epic, sprawling sagas of profound betrayal and abject victimhood. It's a repetitive, exhausting plotline so deeply ingrained in her persona that it could effortlessly fuel a daytime soap opera for decades. And yet, with bewildering consistency, she never seems to grasp how little genuine sympathy she actually garners from her relentless self-victimization. Because when you are perpetually casting yourself as the wrong party, the eternal victim, eventually people begin to suspect that you might in fact be the true villain in your own endlessly unfolding drama. Her consistent, palpable unhappiness, evident regardless of her geographical location, strongly suggests that her deep-seated misery isn't truly tied to a specific political climate, but rather to something far more profound, something fundamentally internal within herself, hinting at a deeper struggle for self-acceptance that no amount of ocean travel can assuage.
Rosie O'Donnell ditching the U.S. for Ireland in the wake of Trump's victory, and the president is responding. Watch it.
You know, you have Rosie O'Donnell. Do you know who she is? Do you know who she is? Yeah. You're better off not knowing that.
Wow, hardest hit, not even knowing who she is. That one's got hurt. But she did prove that self-deportation can work, right?
Yeah, they'll find out soon enough when she gets there and eats them out of house and home. You know, I have this idea, and I'm going to give it to Fox Nation because that's the kind of person I am. You know the VH specials, Where Are They Now? Yeah. They need to do Where Are They Now for political moments. The legendary debate, Trump, Megyn Kelly, Rosie O. Where are they? So you have like where did like one catapulted to the presidency, one went to NBC and then to podcast stardom, and the other one went to the land of the potato.
Rosie O'Donnell's entire career, in hindsight, stands as a stark, harrowing cautionary tale. It's a living testament to the fact that raw talent alone, no matter how bright, can only carry a person so far if they insist on alienating everyone around them with a potent cocktail of self-righteousness and wildly erratic behavior. She managed to transform what could have been an undoubtedly successful, enduring media career into a ceaseless series of very public, highly publicized meltdowns. Spectacles so monumentally over the top that even the most sensationalist reality, television producers might reject them for being too extreme. And just to truly sweeten this already bitter pot, Rosie's more recent attempts at political commentary often sound less like informed, reasoned opinions and far more like the frantic, nonsensical ramblings of a conspiracy theory enthusiast who has overdosed on caffeine. She flings accusations with the delicate subtlety of a toddler gleefully throwing spaghetti at a wall, desperately hoping that something will stick. Spoiler alert, most of it, inevitably, just slides right off, leaving behind an embarrassing, self-made mess that she is demonstrably far too proud to ever properly clean up. While Rosie might, in her own mind, fervently fancy herself the valiant champion of the common people, Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly, with their unblinking surgical precision, reveal a starkly, devastatingly different picture. They paint a portrait of a woman tragically trapped within her own tightly constructed echo chamber, screaming furiously into an indifferent abyss, and then left utterly bewildered as to why nobody is clapping. Their devastating takedown isn't merely about roasting Rosie, it's a masterclass in the art of systematically dismantling someone who has spent years meticulously constructing their entire public brand on the shaky, crumbling foundations of manufactured outrage and a truly staggering sense of unearned entitlement. Rosie's political commentary, when subjected to any real scrutiny, often feels less like thoughtful analysis and far more like a chaotic barrage of trending hashtags haphazardly thrown together in a desperate attempt to sound woke. But Gutfeld and Kelly, with their sharp, incandescent humor, strip all that away, mercilessly highlighting the enormous gaping chasm that exists between Rosie's inflated self-perception and the simple, undeniable reality that most people, frankly, just want to mute her voice entirely. And speaking of muting, let us consider Rosie's relentless, almost obsessive attempts at being a social media warrior. The woman treats Twitter like her personal, never-ending battleground, firing off tweets like verbal grenades, delivered with the delicate subtlety of a sledgehammer. She swings wildly, indiscriminately at anyone and everyone, from her fellow celebrities who dare to disagree to random unsuspecting strangers, with an intensity that strongly suggests she might be profoundly compensating for something deep within. The only problem is, while Rosie is busily swinging her digital sledgehammer, the rest of us are left ducking and covering, wondering with profound bewilderment how someone can possess so much time, so much energy, and yet so frustratingly, so utterly little filter.
Rosie is so outspoken. Imagine the horror in being a Democrat, like maybe a normal Democrat, like an old, blue dog Democrat, Eliana, and having one of the people most associated with your brand out there pointing to some huge growth right underneath her nose, saying it might be a pimple or it's a herpes, and then delivering an update, it's a herpes. I have herpes. Look at my herpes virus. It was caused by Donald Trump, and then asking us to picture her in bed with a vibrator and Cynthia Nixon. And then they're like, why can't we get young men on Team Blue? What is it?
At the very end of the day, Rosie O'Donnell's indelible legacy, far from being solely about her controversial work in entertainment or her bewildering misfired forays into political commentary, stands as a stark, powerful, and enduring cautionary tale. It's a living testament to the destructive forces unleashed when ego and outrage are allowed to go completely unchecked, swelling into a monstrous, uncontrollable entity. Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly's brutal, honest roast serves as a crucial, undeniable reminder that fame, when untempered by even an ounce of self-awareness, becomes a dangerous, toxic cocktail that can obliterate a career from the inside out. It underscores the undeniable truth that sometimes the absolute best, most sane way to effectively deal with a loud, blustering, relentlessly self-important public figure is to turn up the heat, not with anger, but with a little perfectly aimed humor and an awful lot of unvarnished truth. So while Rosie may, with predictable consistency, continue to yell furiously into the vast, indifferent internet abyss, know this: somewhere in a brightly lit studio, Greg and Megyn are probably meticulously crafting their next razor-sharp, devastating takedown. And honestly, that's precisely the best part of this entire bizarre spectacle. Watching the unstoppable force of reason, wit, and truth beautifully, undeniably collide with the immovable, stubborn, and often delusional object of Rosie's ego. Spoiler alert, and a truly satisfying one at that. The force, invariably, relentlessly, tends to win, proving logic's ultimate victory. And that, in a nutshell, is precisely why Rosie O'Donnell will forever remain the unparalleled gift that truly keeps on giving, not for her intended purposes, but for comedy, for biting sarcasm, and for serving as a constant, stark reminder of what tragically happens when you fundamentally confuse shouting louder with actually having something genuinely, profoundly worth saying. Greg and Megyn have just delivered the kind of roast that leaves absolutely no room for doubt. Rosie, you are indeed a legend, but overwhelmingly, irrevocably, the kind of legend people laugh at, not with. Her decision to ditch the US for Ireland in the tumultuous wake of Trump's victory was a public spectacle, and even the president himself, when pointedly asked if he knew who she was, delivered the ultimate, most devastating unspoken blow. You're better off not knowing. That dismissal, that utter erasure, that brutal assertion of irrelevance, cut deeper than any direct insult, not even knowing who she is. That one truly definitively broke her. But in her dramatic, self-imposed exile, she did inadvertently prove one thing, that self-deportation can indeed work, right? The Irish, one suspects, will find out soon enough just how much she eats them out of house and home, as her presence becomes a new kind of burden. The sheer, unyielding absurdity of her public persona, the relentless need for controversy, the baffling self-importance, all make for compelling viewing, a car crash you simply cannot look away from. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest entertainment comes from watching someone completely lose the plot, publicly and spectacularly, unable to see their own reflection. And honestly, for all the chaos, the drama, the sheer unbridled pettiness, we wouldn't have it any other way. It's a masterclass in what not to do, a constant source of schadenfreude, and a clear demonstration of how quickly fame can curdle into infamy when humility is absent and ego reigns supreme.